people wanted was just to take down the old establishment and start anew. And that is what we did in 2016, and that is why, for God's sakes, thank God, we have a great President of the United States of America. And that's the kind of leader I am. And I told him, I said, sir, I was Trump before you were Trump. In 2007, I took on the toughest crackdown on illegal immigration. I put that in place. In 2008, it was implemented. So far, we've handed more than 7,500 criminal illegal aliens over to ICE for deportation. Our violent crime rate fell by 48.7% in 2 years. The Washington Post called that a coincidence. A coincidence. Well, we knew it wasn't, especially when the crime rate began to rise in places like Maryland and Fairfax County, where all these illegals were leaving our community and they were going right up there to Fairfax and in Maryland. Now, that is what we got to do all throughout Virginia. All throughout Virginia. I am not afraid to take on a conservative, controversial issue. I'm more than willing to do that. I've demonstrated that over and over and over again. And a couple of weeks ago, Maria and I went down to Charlottesville, where that city council in Charlottesville, and I don't know how many of you heard about this, they voted to remove a statue of Robert E. Lee, a great American, a war hero. Not just a Confederate hero, an American war hero in the Mexican-American War. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit about this later on. We were mobbed by Black Lives Matter protesters and all sorts of protesters. I stood my ground. So far, more than 450,000 people in Virginia have seen that video because we stood our ground. And as your governor, I'm going to stand for you, and I'm going to win. Thank you all very, very much.
As Russ described, we're now going to go into our issue-based questions. You'll each have 2 minutes to respond. We're just going to alternate the order for each question. Again, these were submitted by the committee members. We're going to begin, and Senator Wagner, you'll have the first chance at answering this first question. So as governor, you're going to need to compromise and sacrifice on some issues in order to advance others, and therefore you will not be able to accomplish your goals on every issue. So discuss at least 3 specific priorities that you plan to advance, even if it has to be at the cost of other things.
I think I said a little bit of that in my opening remarks, but it's interesting. I just was in a debate, and Ed was there, and it degenerated into between Ed and Corey about a statue in Richmond, and I've tried to focus on things that I think Virginia is very concerned about. And let me talk a little bit. One thing, uncompromised. One thing is going back into the education system and making sure that career and technical education is a major part of an education and an option for the parents and children to discuss. That will have dramatic impact to the economy of Virginia. Secondly, uncompromising is a rollback in regulation. A rollback, a meaningful rollback of doing the regulations and making sure that those regulations that are in place are there for a reason, but those that are unnecessary and drive up the cost of doing business is absolutely put into place and restricted. I think third and foremost is going back into the budget and looking at where we're spending our money today and making sure that that money that's currently in the general fund goes into transportation so we can address those transportation needs. It absolutely has to be addressed. Because when I talk about economic development, I got a lot of agreement. We don't have a transportation network. We don't have students trained. And regulation is hurting business. And this is about creating jobs in the economy in Virginia because that's the holdback we have right now. And so those are uncompromising positions that no matter what. Now, I have a 25-year track record of extremely conservative voting. Anybody is free to check it. Anybody is free to check it. I am pro-life. I've proven that over and over again. When you take a look at the voting and what we have to do to make sure that only those people that are American citizens and Virginia citizens are registered to vote, and they're the only ones voting. You will see bill after bill I've been co-patron on and carried to ensure the integrity of our voting system. Those are things that are uncompromising. And one last thing that's uncompromising is that if you're here illegally in this state, an illegal alien and a legal immigrant, what part of illegal don't we understand? We will work with the Trump administration to make sure that those that are here illegally move out.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
Thank you. As Senator Wagner said, in the last debate, and by the way, it's my understanding that Ed Gillespie actually chose the date for this and time for this debate, but decided not to show up. I don't know if he's scared of us or what, Frank, but he's not here. Anyway, look, there are a lot of important issues, and I bring up illegal immigration, I bring up the statute, because I want to let you know what kind of leader I'm going to be, what kind of leader I am. I don't back down to the left. I may have lost a couple of political battles. I've never lost an election, by the way. But I've never given in. I always fight. Always fight. The most important thing that this Commonwealth needs to do is to get its financial house in order. And the problem that we have is this. Medicaid is out of control. In 1985, it was 5% of the state's budget. Do you know what it is today? Any guesses out there? I know Senator Wagner knows. It's 22%. It's 22%, and it's growing. That's without Obamacare expansion. The only way that we're going to be able to make room for other priorities in this state, whether it's K-12 or higher ed or tax cuts, is we've got to contain the cost of Medicaid, and that's exactly what I plan to do, working with the Trump administration to block grant Medicaid. Block grant it, cap it at 20% of the state's budget, and then we design a system, a healthcare system. We, Virginians, design a healthcare system for Virginians, and we contain the cost of Medicaid, and then what we've got to do is this is really dear to my heart. We are going to pass the biggest income tax cut in Virginia history. North Carolina had a top marginal income tax rate of 7.75% just 7 years ago. Do you know what it is today? As of January 1st, it's 5.49%. They've been able to do it. We have to do the same thing if we want to bring back jobs to the Commonwealth. Thank you.
And Mr. Stewart, you'll be first for this next question, unless you want to catch your breath.
That's
okay. Our next question is, what is a conservative? You both describe yourselves as conservatives. Can you provide some specific examples of actions that you have taken to actually conserve within a political, social, or economic context? Explain how these actions have benefited the citizens of Virginia.
Great, thank you. A conservative is somebody who's not just talk. And there's a lot of talking. All this talk, I deliver. All this talk about slashing spending. I slashed $185 million out of the base budget in Prince William County. It was hard to do. We had a lot of blowback on that. It was not an easy thing to do, but we did it. We delivered, I delivered, under my leadership, the biggest tax cut in Prince William County history. All this talk about creating jobs, I've been able to do it. #1 job growth county in the Commonwealth, Virginia, #3 in the United States. Others talk about cracking down on illegal immigration. And believe me, there was a lot of blowback. We had thousands of people coming to protest me. They hanged me in effigy. I didn't back down, and I got that put in place. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that everybody's just going to go along to get along, and they're not just going to just follow everything that I want to do. And I know that because I've been governing Prince William County for 10 years. And sometimes, you've got to twist arms. Folks, I've been brutalized by the left in Northern Virginia for a long time. And I have become an absolutely ruthless conservative. I will do whatever it takes. I will twist any arm to get the job done. As governor of Virginia, I'm only going to have 4 years to pass the biggest income tax cut in Virginia history, to take 287G statewide so that we're removing criminal, illegal aliens, to defend our heritage and our history in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and to make Virginia the number one job growth state in the Mid-Atlantic. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You know, I grabbed this out of my car. It came in the mail today. It's sent by the American Conservative Union, looking at your voting record. And it's a certificate of achievement for this past session of the General Assembly. Something I've gotten every year. And what does it mean to be a conservative? And what have you done for the people of Virginia? Well, the other candidates, if they are here, couldn't say what they have done in the legislature here in Virginia because they've never been in the legislature. Over and over again, we fought the Democrats back over and over again on their liberal agenda. It starts with stopping. You know, we tell people, a lot of people send us up there not to pass bills, but to kill bad bills. Quite frankly, I take more pleasure out of killing bad bills than moving forward with good bills. But that's an important aspect of it. One of it is we've taken Virginia almost as far as we can in protecting the sanctity of human life, the unborn child. This year we were unsuccessful. Hopefully next year, and if I'm your governor, it will be signed that we will go out and protect when fetal pain at the 20-week, 21-week period, because that's an important aspect. That's part of what it means to be conservative. Part of what it means to be conservative means only Virginian citizens are on the voter register rolls. And we ensure that our voter registers are doing everything in their power to ensure that it's only Virginia voters and citizens that are on the registered rolls. That's part of being conservative also. Part of being conservative is walking into a $1.2 billion budget deficit like we did this year with a proposal from Governor McAuliffe to raise fees across the board and shift priorities within the budget, but balance that budget with no tax increases, take all the fee increases out, balance a $1.2 billion deficit, take it out with a balanced budget, and ensure that our hardworking state police stop leaving the state police because of lack of pay, and ensuring that the funds are available there for the state police and some of the hardworking state employees that we have, the hardworking, to be able to get their raise also. So I think that's the definition of conservative, and that's what we've been able to do for the people of Virginia. Thanks.
You mentioned the budget, so let's talk about the budget. Discuss at least one significant item in the Virginia budget that you plan to eliminate, even if it requires your refusing to sign any budget containing that particular item.
Well, let me give that some thought here a little bit, because the budget's a very, very complex document. But I think Planned Parenthood and funding is one of those things that's got to come out of the budget. The funding is in for Planned Parenthood, the budget doesn't get signed, it goes back to the General Assembly one more time. And so you asked for one question, and I will not use my entire 2 minutes, except to say I wish the other candidates were here today to do that. Because I want you to think about something while I got another minute left on that answer. The absurdity of someone who's a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., the anointed one that can raise all kinds of money in Washington, D.C., coming down here and thinking he can run Virginia. Because that's what one of the candidates in the Republican primary, Ed Gillespie, is. Think about that. You don't have to think real hard, because you got a governor right now came from the same background, the same information, and moving forward. He has no experience in the General Assembly. He doesn't know the things that you would know if you worked 25 years in the General Assembly. He hasn't been there in some of the toughest battles. I doubt if he's ever testified in front of a General Assembly committee. Yet he's got all these good Washington ideas, and we know how good those ideas are. Look what's done to this country. And he wants to come down here and run Virginia. Think about that for a minute. Think about the absurdity of what that means. My light's still not green, but you know what? That's enough. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm going to be working with Senator Wagner as we eliminate Planned Parenthood from the Virginia state's budget. He's right on that. He's right on that. It's absolutely reprehensible that they're even in there right now. Here's the other thing I would eliminate, and I know I'm going to offend at least a couple of people when I say this, but that's okay. I'm used to it. We are doing a tremendous disservice by subsidizing the colleges and universities to teach a bunch of liberal garbage in our universities. Not only is that expensive for you as taxpayers, but it's wrong because those students, when you graduate, let me just say this, when you graduate with a degree in gender studies or multiculturalism, you're not going to find a job when you graduate. The only job you can probably find is to be a professor who teaches multiculturalism or gender studies. And the problem is, folks, my children and a lot of yours who will be going or have gone to the great schools that we have here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, they're graduating with mounds of debt, and they can't find jobs. And we've got to eliminate political correctness in our universities.
That's right.
There's a really bad guy out there. His name is Alan Groves. He's the Dean of Students at UVA. He encourages his students and professors to rat on other students and professors who say things that are politically incorrect. That's not America. And that doesn't lead to a good educational system, and I will cut that out of the budget as governor.
Our next question, and we'll begin with Mr. Stewart. Legislation was proposed in this year's General Assembly to prohibit abortions after 20 weeks of gestation, known as the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. Although it included numerous co-sponsors in both the House and Senate, no action was taken in the Courts of Justice Committee. If such a bill were to come to your desk, would you veto it or sign it, and explain your decision?
I would sign it. No conditions. No conditions. I would sign it immediately. Now here's the thing, folks. What does 100% pro-life mean? It means pro-life. It means you're going to protect life with no exceptions. No exceptions. Now, our opponent, who's not here again, said that he was 100% pro-life. I'm talking about Ed Gillespie. He said he was 100% pro-life. But apparently he doesn't know what 100% means. 100% means no exceptions. It means you're going to protect life 100% of the time. He wouldn't even sign a bill, and he said this in January of this year. He would not sign a bill that prohibited late-term abortion unless it contained exceptions. Well, here's the big problem with that. When you have those exceptions to that prohibition, it creates a gap in the law so large you could shoot a torpedo through it. You have to ban late-term abortion. Late-term abortion amounts, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, sorry to my campaign staff, it amounts to infanticide. And it's wrong. And the number one job that we have on every level of government, whether it's local, state, or federal, is to protect the lives, the rights of our citizens. The number one of which is the right to life. And absolutely, I would sign that ban into law. One of the first things I would do, and proudly do so, as governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I must have been clairvoyant because I answered the question on the last time I answered it. Obviously, I said I'd sign the bill, and I would. I think a little bit of difference is that I think when you get to the 20-week term, which is the late-term abortions, if there's an issue with life of the mother, then that difficult decision you'd have to put between the child or the mother then I think we need to get out of the way of that. I think anything that's involved in rape or incest could be well-made, decisions made, whatever, during that first 20-week period. So I don't want to really dwell longer on this. It's a hugely important subject, and I think I've talked about it at length. But I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about what we can do here in the Richmond area to grow the economy. I don't want to seem like I'm hung up on it, but I think it's very, very important we talk about it. I mentioned earlier, and I'll wait for my light to turn red, there's a factory not 10 miles away over here. You may not even be familiar with it, King William County. Over 200 trucks a day leave that factory. Over 300 people a day work in that factory. Minimum starting, $17 an hour. It runs all the way up to $40 or $50 an hour for the employees that work in the factory. How many people knew it was there in King William County? There's a few. It is unbelievable. Go sit down and talk with them. They could double the employment if the infrastructure was put into place to allow that employment to double. If they had a rail line, if they do that. They move what they move in containers out of the Port of Baltimore and not Hampton Roads, because the infrastructure is not in place to move the containers out of Hampton Roads. They could double the employment in the export market alone if they had the investment in the infrastructure to go in. And you know, that company's Nestle's, and Nestle's just made the corporate decision to move their American headquarters to Arlington, Virginia. Another 1,000 employees. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about experience and knowing what's going on. That's what I'm talking specifically about this area and the type of investments we could make to really ramp up the economy here on the eastern side of Richmond, northeastern side. Thank you all.
Our next question is about sanctuary cities. Would you, as governor, support President Trump's executive order removing federal money to sanctuary cities, including those located in Virginia? And if not, then why not? And would you recommend any other course of action? Senator.
Not only would I support President Trump if there's a Virginia city with the lack of federal funding, but I'd also ensure that the state funding would be cut significantly back, if not off entirely, for those localities that may choose to offer a sanctuary city. Look, illegal immigration is illegal. If you are legally in Mexico, illegally, it's a 2-year felony. Come back a second time, it's a 10-year felony. Think about that. Think if we had parity laws. Nobody's suggesting we have parity laws, but think about that. Every other country has very stiff penalties if you're in their country illegally. So, what part of illegal immigration? It's up to the chief executive to enforce the laws that are passed. Finally, we have a president who is supporting the laws that have been passed by Congress. And you know, the Democrats had both houses, and they had the presidency, and they never changed the law. They never changed the law. So they must like it. So let's enforce it. And let's make sure it's enforced in Virginia. Because the primary job of the chief executive in a governor or a president's job is to enforce the laws that of the respective bodies that did that. Not only enforce the laws, but the most important function of a chief executive officer, of a governor, is to protect the citizens of Virginia. And over again, you can see the results of the crime committed by many illegal aliens across the board. It's interesting, the governor of Texas came out and said 140,000 illegal aliens had committed 500,000 crimes, felonies, in the state of Texas. Think about that. Many of them repeat offenders. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very serious. We have got to enforce the laws that are on the books. And if it's a federal law, we help the feds enforce drug laws. We help the feds enforce the federal laws. We work together in a team. Finally, we got a president we can work together as a team to enforce the immigration laws of this country. Thank you.
Well, you probably know how I'm going to answer this question. So exactly 1 week ago today, Marie and I showed up at the Bell Tower, Capitol, the park in front of the Capitol building. And thank God the Capitol Police were there, and the Richmond Police, mounted, because we were mobbed again by protesters. They're coming all over. In my own board meeting just the other day, they followed me around. But I started that off by saying, I want to thank you all, you lunatics out there. Not talking about you, by the way. I was talking about them, I was talking to them. I said, because you brought the press out here. And I'm glad you brought the press out here. So, they were very, 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 very ugly. They were saying really horrendous things. And it was, here's the thing. When people say, well, why are you so mean on immigrants? And I said, first of all, I'm not mean on immigrants. My wife is an immigrant. But this is about enforcing the law. And with me, speaking right before me, was the father of a girl who had been killed by an illegal alien in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And there were others. Brittany Binger, raped and mutilated and murdered by an illegal alien. And we knew he was here in Virginia. We'd apprehended him before. We knew he was a criminal. We knew he was going to do something bad again. In Virginia, we have to protect our citizens. And if a locality like Richmond refuses to protect its own citizens from criminal illegal aliens, then absolutely yes, I will cut off every possible funding, starting with 599 funding, to make sure they come into compliance with federal law.
Our next question is on divided government. The state Senate is very closely divided, with Republicans currently in control by a mere 21 to 19 margin. Should the General Assembly be split for a portion of the next governor's four-year term, are there any specific areas where you could find common ground with Democrats? And we're going to begin with Mr. Stewart.
Well, one thing I grew tired of, and I promised myself when I first became elected as chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Prince William County, I'm not doing this job for fun. I'm doing it because I want to do the right thing and get things accomplished. I'm not going to just compromise with Democrats in order to further my political career. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. I got a beautiful family, I got a beautiful home, I have a great life. I don't need that. And here's the thing. Democrats know they're on the run. We control the vast majority of the governorships as Republicans in this country. We control the United States House of Representatives, we control the United States Senate, and in Virginia, we control the House of Delegates and we control the Senate. That's not a coincidence. That's because the citizens of this Commonwealth want good, solid, conservative leadership. And the Democrats, look, at the end, if they want to save their own hides, they need to understand that citizens, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, or Asian, whatever their ethnicity, they want just very limited things from government. But the most important thing, they want government to get off their back. They want lower taxes. They want government to protect them and their families. And if they can't compromise on that, well, then we just reach right over them, don't we? Go right to the citizens and we promote them. Democrats will, when they realize that their own hides are on the line, they're going to agree, they're going to work with us, and they are going to help us make room for the biggest tax cut in Virginia history, because that's not just good for Virginia businesses, that's good for everybody in the Commonwealth, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
I think one of the things with 25 years experience is you know all the players, you know them personally. I saw Ryan McDougall here earlier. I remember when he first came into General Assembly. In fact, when you've been there that long, you tend to see a lot of people that you know, some come, some go. But let me share some stories with you about working both sides of the aisle. and being able to do that. I was with Governor Allen when we worked both sides of the aisle and abolished parole. I was with Governor Allen when we worked both sides of the aisle and had truth in sentencing. I was with Governor Allen when we capped college costs and moved forward. And to a certain degree, Corey says something. They do watch the outcome of the statewide elections. But let me tell you something, they don't cooperate. The Senate is 2119. I know very well. Obviously, I just got done with a session 2119. I'll share a little something with you. The district I represent in the city of Virginia Beach voted for Barack Obama twice. Twice. They ran the president of Cox Communications for Virginia against me and gave him $2.2 million to take me out. $2.2 million in a state Senate seat. I beat him by 10 percentage points. 10 percentage points in a district that Barack Obama won. I think that's important for a number of reasons. Probably it speaks a lot. You haven't had the relationship like I've had with my constituents for 25 years to understand. But you turned a lot of votes. You turned a lot of Democrat votes, and you garnished the independent votes if you get to that kind of spread where you won an election by that much. And I think that's important. I know the players. You don't compromise your issues, but you do work with both sides of the aisle if you expect to get something done if you, for some reason, can't hold the majority. But let me tell you what's going on right now. It's imperative that we have. Right now we passed probably 30 or 40 great conservative bills. Every one of them is going to be vetoed. And we cannot sustain a veto. That's why it's absolutely imperative that we have a Republican governor while we have a Republican General Assembly and move forward. So that's what's at stake here. There's so much that we can do, the conservative agenda that we can put into place, the right thinking kind of thoughts that allow Virginia to grow, and not a cheerleader out there traveling all over the world, somehow trying to attract businesses in, and has very, very little to show for it. So thank you all very much.
Our next question is about challenging federal law. What is your position on challenging federal law? If in support, what criteria would you use to determine whether to proceed with such a challenge in the future? And are there any laws you would challenge on the first day of your term? And we'll start with the senator.
Thank you. And absolutely we should challenge. We should challenge through the legal methods that are given to us. Challenge them in court over and over again. You know, the Obama administration passed something called the Clean Power Plan. The Clean Power Plan would have cost you all in your electric rates. It's about a 20-25% increase in your electric rates because coal plants would have had to been shut down. And new $2 billion replacement plants would have had to been put in place. Unfortunately, we didn't have a governor or an attorney general that wanted to fight that back. Many other states did, and right now the courts have ruled that the Clean Power Plan cannot be implemented in Virginia. That's just one example of what you do. You can't ignore federal law as much as we'd like to. As much as I know there's people who just say, just ignore it, don't do it. You can't do it. What you've got to do is challenge it in court and take it down step by step. But the problem usually is not in the law. The problem is when the bureaucrats take over that law and start writing the regulation. That's where the Obama administration has hurt this country over and over and over again in area after area after area. And we, the state, I want Virginia, and if you let me governor, Virginia is going to step forward to challenge the bureaucracy every time they get out of hand. Now, we had a president in there that says he's going to bring in and reel in regulation. What we need, and I'm ready to be that governor, is to bring him the whole list of saying, reel these in, these don't apply, these don't do that. And hopefully Congress will take another look at the regulations on the books and start pulling them off the books. Then let Virginia go and let Virginia operate the Virginia way because we know better how to run our state than anybody in Washington, D.C., including a lobbyist running for the Republican nomination knows how to run Virginia.
Well, two things. I think, first of all, folks, we've got to support President Trump up in Washington right now. We've got to. Because this legislation that was put forth by the Speaker of the House is a betrayal to us as conservatives. This is not right. It's absolutely not right. They ran across the country, almost all of them, saying Obamacare is a bad thing, which of course it is. And now they're trying to replace Obamacare with Obamacare Light. The only way we're ever going to have an efficient healthcare system, especially a healthcare system for the poor in this state or across the country, that provides a good service, is to break and cut the political strings from Washington. That's got to happen. Now, what does that mean? That means that Medicaid has got to be block granted. We take the amount of Medicaid funding that every state has, in this case is 50%, in Virginia 50% of the Medicaid funding comes from the federal government. The other 50% comes from you as the taxpayers. The only way that we're going to have an efficient healthcare system is to design a system for Virginians by Virginians. And we have to support the full and absolute repeal of Obamacare. Absolutely. The next thing is this, to thank God we've got a great president of the United States, but if we don't, in 4 or 8 years, I will never support the implementation of any new federal regulation on our Second Amendment rights. If the feds want to do it, that's up to them, but we're not going to support it.
Thank you. Our next question, it's a long one, so take a break. The Virginia Growth and Opportunity Board was established in the governor's office to promote collaborative regional economic and workforce development opportunities and activities. Many believe this body serves to pick financial winners and losers. Do you agree? If so, then do you believe this is a necessary function of state government? And how do you reconcile the principles of the Republican Creed with the actions of this largely unelected board in the planning and execution of the Commonwealth's economic affairs? And we'll begin with Supervisor Stewart.
Well, thank you. And this is, in case you didn't know, the McAuliffe administration colluded, that's the right word, with some Chinese interests, spent your money to bring in a Chinese company into Virginia, and guess how many jobs they created? 0. I think it's criminal. And I'll tell you something, when I'm governor, we're looking into it. We're going to look into it. And I know Frank and others in the General Assembly are trying to do that now, but we're going to look into it. But I completely agree with the premise of the question. Because you can't go globetrotting across the globe, getting all this press, etc., and say, hey, I'm the jobs governor, and try to cherry pick businesses from across the globe. That's just feel-good stuff, folks. It doesn't work. 80% of the jobs in the Commonwealth are created by small businesses. Are there any small business people out here? Well, thank you, because you're the ones who are creating the jobs in this Commonwealth. You're the ones who are doing it. And the only way that we're going to make your job easier to invest in your company so that you can hire more people and invest is we have to get off your back. Not just regulations, but also in terms of tax. And since most small businesses are not incorporated, they pay tax at the personal income tax rate, which means the only way we're going to give you a break so that you can hire more people and grow the economy is to ratchet down the income tax. It's currently at 5.75%. We're going to reduce it substantially, and we're going to eventually just fade it right out. But under a Governor Stewart's administration, you are going to see everyone, especially small businesses, are going to see a drastic reduction in your state income tax liability. Thank you.
We have an economic development section under Governor McAuliffe with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership that, quite frankly, has been totally unaffected. Our governor has globetrotted, quite frankly, to build his resume because he thought, as he worked so hard to get Hillary Clinton elected, that he would be the Secretary of Commerce and this would look good on his resume in his Senate hearings. Who's kidding who? That's what this all was about. With little to show for the results. Now, we've had problems in bringing regions together. We've had problems in bringing localities and together and consistent ideas and themes of how to move forward. And some of these involve healthcare, particularly in pharmaceutical research and those types of things. We have bits and pieces, pockets around Virginia that show promise, but can't get the synergism built and cannot get the connectivity together to actually grow. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. Go to Research Triangle and look what's going on in Research Triangle and the economy down there. Go over to the Silicon Valley and look at the thoughts and ideas behind that. We have an economic development program that's been in place, that's been ineffective. So you start to look for new options and do that. And one of those new options is Go Virginia. And like anything, you don't jump in 120%. You start logically to see how it goes. But the premise is, let's not pick winners and losers. Let's pick industry sectors that make sense for the region, where there is research capabilities, where there is ongoing research, where there is those opportunities. And let's see if we can't, as a region, build up an economy built around the strengths of that region already and build something that we see works so well in North Carolina and out in Silicon Valley. And that's what Go Virginia is. Again, not heavily funded. Will they pick? Yes, they will. But they'll pick using businessman's expertise along with government oversight as opposed to some bureaucrats in VEDP deciding and cherry-picking winners and losers at the behest of whoever the governor is. So it is. Is it worth trying? Absolutely. Because we need those kinds of things that we see in other parts of the country.
Thank you. Our next question is about appointments by the governor. The governor has the authority to make approximately 900 appointments to various departments, boards, and commissions. These appointments have serious consequences on the implementation of policy and the management of state government overall. What are some characteristics that you will look for in individuals that you appoint to these positions? And are there any specific departments, boards, or commissions that you believe need to be seriously reformed? And we'll begin with Senator.
First and foremost, I think it starts with our colleges and universities. The governor picks every one of the Board of Visitors for every state college and university in Virginia. For too long, the boards of visitors have come in and not looked at tuition costs. They've looked at what can you do for the university and kind of rubber stamp whatever tuition costs the universities come up with. UVA has raised their tuition in the last 10 years 74%.
Jeez.
Think what the cost of living is. Okay. In addition to, they have amassed a slush fund of $2.2 billion based on the higher tuitions and other things, spin-offs of their hospital and a few other things. They've amassed this 2.2. Consider for a minute the rainy day fund in Virginia is about $400 or $500 million right now. $2.2 billion on the backs of that. We have to appoint boards of visitors that are conscientious and drive the cost down in our universities. And let's try to make college affordable again for those students that are attending college. And that's an instrumental, that's a huge part of the appointments. Those are very, very powerful positions. The State Board of Education is another big gubernatorial appointment. The State Board of Education needs to have people in there that recognize that homeschoolers can play in our athletic programs. Homeschoolers should have access. If the student wants to learn German and the parents can't speak German, then he can attend the public school and take a German class. He has access to it. Homeschool parents pay taxes just like the rest of us do. It should have as much access to our public schools as they want to have. And we also need to have a state board of education that recognizes that school choice is absolutely imperative. That the students that are in failing school systems and their parents have an opportunity to choose another school, a school that works. And we need a state board of education that puts competition back in education. Because as we read the Republican Creed, we stand for competition. Competition works. It's the way we better ourselves. So, got a red light.
I really love bulldogs. I really do. I'm not talking about the actual dogs. Actually, we have 2 German Shepherds. But I love bulldogs, people bulldogs. Tough people. People who aren't going to be bowled over by just a little bit of pressure. Somebody who's willing to take a lot of pressure and make difficult decisions. And as I've been governing Prince William County now for 10 years, those are the kinds of people we've placed as department heads and as county executive. People who are willing to make the hard decisions. Now, when I passed the biggest tax cut in Prince William County history, the first budget that I controlled, it wasn't easy. But this is how we did it. We went out to all the department heads and we said, look, we need you to identify cuts. If there was a tragedy in the county and you had to cut your budget by 10% or 20% or 30%, give us all those savings. And by the way, don't give us the Washington Monument approach, which is cut the most thing that everybody loves and that nobody wants to cut. Don't give us. We want the real thing. If you give us that, you're done. Just like that. And they did. And they identified those savings. And that is how we cut $185 million out of the base budget. And in Virginia, in order to finance the biggest tax cut in Virginia history, what I'm going to do is we're going to hire the toughest, most conservative team that you have ever seen in the governor's mansion. And they are going to, those department heads will go down to their mid-level managers and say, look, you need to identify savings, each one of you. And if you don't do it, you're done. And guess what happens? They identify the savings because they know where it is. And that's the first thing I would do as governor. Well, I've said a few things that I'm going to do first as governor, but that's certainly one of them. Thanks a lot.
This is our last issues-based question. This is question number 10. We're going to talk about ethics and conflicts of interest. Do you have any specific guidelines or personal code of ethics that you would apply in determining whether a conflict of interest may exist while performing your duties as governor? For example, where would you draw the line if a former client, business associate, personal friend, or family member was involved in matters of government under your control? And we'll begin with Mr. Stewart.
Well, this is, if you lose control, if you lose the trust of the citizens, it's over. You will never get it back. It's very, very hard to get it back. In fact, it is impossible. There would be a very, very strict code of ethics. Absolutely. No conflicts. If we find anything like that, we investigate it, and we would remove that person promptly, even before we were required to do so. One thing I didn't mention in my bio, I am an Eagle Scout. And I have always been very, very brutally honest. And I think that's why I've been able to get elected in Prince William County. It's a strong Democratic district that voted more than 60% for Hillary Clinton. It was about 60% for Obama twice. But I've been able to get elected, and because people know one thing about me, I'm not going to just tell them what they want to hear. Regardless of the audience, whether it was you as conservatives, or if it was independents or even Democrats out there, I would tell you the very same thing that I'm saying right now. And because people respect directness, they respect strong leadership, and they always expect the truth. And this is why President Trump was elected. Because people were sick and tired of politicians just telling them whatever they wanted to hear. This comes down to truthfulness. It comes down to courage. That's why I respected and still respect President Trump. And that's the kind of leader you're going to get from me. 100% honest, even if you don't like it. 100% honest all of the time. Thank you.
you. Let me just say this, if you want to check how many times under Corey's leadership that the property taxes in Prince William County be raised, I encourage you to check that record. Having said that, look, I've been in the General Assembly for 25 years. We wrestle with that all the time because we are all citizen legislators. We have to have other employment, and we all have other employment. We have a system that allows us when we come up for a vote, and if it is a conflict, and you can't avoid that, you work in one area or another. If it's an area that involves a shipyard, well, I'm going to vote abstain because it involves my business, and I stay out of it. I'm a Naval Academy graduate, and I'm a Navy diver. Midshipmen will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate anyone else who does. As a Navy diver, you were honest, you were straightforward, or people died. It was just that easy. You had to be straightforward. Look, it's easy to say a lot of things to you that you want to hear, but I will never lie to you. And that, I think, is why I win by such margins in the district I do. Because you talk to people all the time, and people may not agree with you, and I got it. That ain't going to happen, but you'll never catch me in a lie. You'll never catch me doing that. You know, a lot of talk about the biggest income tax he's going to put into place. Very easy to say. Very much what you want to hear. But well over half the dollars that we appropriate, 50% of the dollars in one way or another goes directly back to your localities. Cut that, and guess what your localities are going to be doing? That's the reality of the situation that we're in right now. We just cut $1.2 billion out of that budget. We did that and gave pay raises to the people that keep us safe. So it's easy to say these things, very easy to get up here and tell you what you want to hear, but much more difficult, if not almost impossible, to try to find something that's going to happen. But I'd ask you, encourage you to go back and look at how many times that Corey Stewart's been there that property taxes have been raised in Prince William County.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our policy-based questions. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to get to know you guys a little bit better, give all the voters a chance to know you back when you were young and had your dreams and plans and all that kind of stuff. So we've got some questions just to find out a little bit more about your personalities, backgrounds, and experiences. Corey, we'll begin with you. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I knew what I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be a longshoreman because that's what my dad was. And he worked very, very hard, and it was very tough. And in fact, he was a fourth-generation longshoreman on the Great Lakes. I was inspired very young. I wanted to lead. My childhood hero was John F. Kennedy, and I greatly admired him. And I always thought that I wanted to lead. And gosh, I don't know, what was that? Was that it? Pretty much.
Yeah, I've got more.
Okay, all right. So I'll leave it at that. That's what got me into it, you know. But I really thought it was important to start my family life, get my career going. Marie and I, we met in Japan, by the way. We met in Japan in 1992, and the guys were like, oh, she was like the only Swedish girl in Japan, I think. So she stood out, and then after we started the career and we had our two boys, then I decided that was the time to finally get involved in leadership, which is when I decided to run for the county board in Prince William County.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
I grew up in Arlington County. My natural father, who died while on active duty in the United States Navy, he died when I was 6 months old. He was in the active duty Navy. I got to go to my parents' wedding, which not many people do. Fort Belvoir, I was 5 years old when my mom remarried a career Army officer. So if this story is starting to sound something, I think you'll begin to understand. My brother went to West Point. As I grew up, I had the opportunity as an Explorer Scout to go into scuba lessons down in Florida and learn scuba, fell in love with being underwater. And decided at that point that I wanted to be the best diver I could in major ocean engineering and be in the military. So the options kind of narrowed down to one school, and that was the Naval Academy. And I went there. So I was able to fulfill my boyhood dreams, if you will. About the third, fourth year you're diving in the Navy, you realize the water's really cold. It's really ugly work, and enjoyed every minute of it, but I enjoyed the people that I worked with so much in the military. The divers I worked around were some of the best people that I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and indeed it was a pleasure. But as I got a little bit older, I realized it's kind of a young man's game, and was assigned out of Long Beach Naval Shipyard and said that's more to my filling, and I seem to be able to do pretty good organizing and putting people together to get major projects done, and ended up doing that for a lifetime. So, thank you.
We'll have you go first if you're ready, as Senator. Please tell us about a tough time in your life, how you overcame it, and how it shaped you.
Probably my plebe year at the Naval Academy. It's a difficult time. There was many times I said, I'm quitting. And it's interesting, at the Naval Academy we used to have a saying, you don't transfer from the Naval Academy to another college. You quit the Naval Academy and you attend another college. And I will tell you, this is where the bonds are built, because I had 3 other roommates, and they would convince me in my week that I was getting out of here, to convince me to stay in, and then the next week it would be one of my 3 roommates ready to leave. And that's where you start to build this bond between your classmates at the Naval Academy to allow you to get through it. But the constant tension they put you through, the constant drilling, the constant harassment, and it's not for 16 weeks. It goes on for 11 months. The constant, hair perfect, uniform perfect. At any moment, somebody can yank you aside and make your life just as miserable as you possibly can. But in the end, it's done for a reason. It steels you. You begin to understand the pressures that you have to deal with day in and day out. You can execute under pressure. And that's quite frankly what the entire system's all about, to weed out those that can't execute under pressure, because when you graduate, you're going to be leading sons and daughters from every walk of life, and your ability to operate under pressure many times decides whether those sons and daughters live or die. And so, it was a great opportunity, but it certainly was a very difficult time to get through.
Well, definitely it was a few years ago when my brother passed away. But in 2004, and this is, I share this story because my father was he had a sense of humor. It was really tremendous. But anyway, he became sick with lung cancer, and he checked into the hospital, and they were asking all these. That's right. We'll try it out later.
Okay, that's fine. Let's move on to our next question. Who has been the person that most influenced who you are today? And whoever would like to go first is fine.
Go ahead. Okay, all right. So I think that's got to be my dad. He was tough as nails, and you know what? You couldn't, you could say whatever you wanted to him, and he could take it. And he was completely, just let it bounce right off of him. And I learned a lot from that, because at the end of the day, you're going to be hit with challenges. You're going to be hit with a lot of especially in politics, a lot of very angry people who think that because you disagree with them, that you're somehow an evil person, and they put that in and they say these horrible things. And I stand up there in front of the board meetings, and the most atrocious things are said that are not true. I've been called, since we put this thing into place in Prince William County, the toughest crackdown on illegal immigration. I've been called everything, a racist, a bigot, all that other stuff. And I try, and they tell me that I'm the one who's full of hatred. But it's not true. And I always think about my dad. I think, you know what? You can't let him get under your skin, and you can't hate him. You can't hate him. Because when you start hating them, you start destroying yourself. So I never do that. And I always try to have a lot of energy, and I always try to have a sense of humor, and I always try to just kind of let it bounce off, because it's only when you can keep your head screwed on straight and keep cool, calm, and collected that you can get the job done despite the opposition. So it's got to be my dad, and I thank him for that.
You know, as I mentioned earlier, my dad died when I was 6 months old. And so my mother was a single mom in the 1950s and raised me. So I would have to say it was my mother, because that was the only parent figure I had for 5 years. And, you know, I learned to cook. I actually loved to cook, because my mother didn't want me wandering around the house, so I stayed in the kitchen with her when I was 2 and 3 years old. But more importantly, and I wish she was alive today, she was the most conservative woman that I've ever met in my life. She was also the hardest working woman that I ever met in my life. And she also didn't put up with a whole lot of nonsense. I doubt my brother would have gotten through West Point, or I would have gotten through the Naval Academy if we hadn't gone through 10 years, 15 years with my mother. And she's the apple of my eye. I miss her every day. I think about her every day. I was driving up here today, and I looked up in the sky, and I said, I know Mom's watching me. Hold my hand while I do this. She was a Sunday school teacher. She taught high school Sunday school. She was the most down-to-earth person that you'd ever want to meet. When she got on a warpath, my brother and I used to look at my stepfather and say, sorry, but we can go out, you got to stay. And but I can remember when I first announced I was running for office, she was very active in Republican politics in Arlington County, if you can imagine. She used to come on those damn ABCers. That's a very liberal group in Arlington. Arlington's for a better county. But she actually won 3 precincts for Bobby Gilbert when she ran for lieutenant governor. So she was a force to be reckoned with. She was a Sunday school teacher, taught high school. And, you know, they had an obituaries. The obituaries in the Washington Post is all over. Rarely do they write an article. But they wrote an article, and I'll never forget the article headline. And we didn't ask them to do this. It just showed up in the Washington Post. Headline was Sunday school teacher dies. But she was more than that. One time she owned 12 houses. She'd buy and flip houses. And she would always instill in, son, always have 2 things going for you. So if the primary falls down, you got a backup to back you up. Very conservative with finances, a child of the Depression. Didn't wear off on me as much as it wore off on my brother, but you know, very, very influential, and I miss her every day.
Okay, this will be our last question before we get to our closing statements. Why did you choose to run for governor? It's a crowded field. Why the specific position as opposed to any other? And we'll begin with the senator.
Look, I kind of opened with these comments, and I looked at the field that's going out when I made the announcement to run. I think I have more to offer Virginians, and I can do more to turn this state around and get us going in the right direction than the other candidates. I can base that on having 25 years experience, knowing the legislative process, that's instrumental, knowing the legislators, that's it. But it's more than that. It's much, much more than that. It's knowing all areas of the Commonwealth. In every area, there's specific needs and differences. Just like we don't need Washington dictating education policy to us, we shouldn't be dictating cookie-cutter approaches to all regions of the state, because there's different issues and different problems in different parts of the state. We have to have a very focused approach on how we build it. I think I come with that I know I come with that expertise. I know far more than the other candidates about what's going on in Virginia, what the fixes are. But I'll leave you with one last thought. This is very important. One of the reasons I'm running. But one of the things in the Navy, you keep getting promoted or you get out. I was in a House for 9, 10 years. I've been in the Senate now for 17 years. I'm ready to move on and bring that expertise to help all Virginians. But here's how it works. The election's in November. The outgoing governor drops a budget in. That's the first 2 years of your administration is in that budget. You're not even sworn in and inaugurated until 4 days after the General Assembly started meeting. They're already dissecting the budget. That's the reality of what goes on in Richmond. And that's the first 2 years of your administration. Unless you know that, unless you know the players, unless you know what's in that budget and ready to turn it around and sit down with them and say it's going to be this way, or we're going to be here a long time, you're not prepared to run for the governor of Virginia. And I believe I'm prepared to run for the governor of Virginia. I've got the conservative credentials. I've got a 25-year track record. Anybody's free to check it. Anybody's free to look at it. But some of the opening comments that was made about the business expertise, combining the business expertise with the government expertise to actually move Virginia forward. And so I'm running for governor for those issues that drive me that I talked about, what I know needs the investments that we need to make in order to see our economy click again. But I'm also running for governor because I honestly feel I can do a better job based on my background, based on my expertise. I'm a military veteran, I'm an accomplished businessman, and I've got the experience in Richmond. And I grew up in Virginia all my life. So if any of those elements or all of those you think is an important aspect that you'd like to see in the governor of Virginia, then I'm your guy. So thank you.
I know you guys are going through a lot of water, so there's some more bottles in case you need some water.
Well, I think there's two things I want you to know about me. I'm a fighter, and I'm a winner. I've been in Northern Virginia, second largest county in the state, 454,000 people, a 60-40 Obama district, and I've been able to win it. Not just once, not just twice, but 4 times by increasing margins. And during that time, I've been a fighter. I've put in place the nation's toughest crackdown on illegal immigration. While others have talked about it, I've done it. And whether other people have talked, other candidates have talked about cutting spending, I've done it, $185 million out of our base budget. When other candidates have talked about job growth, I've done it, #1 in Virginia, #3 in the United States. When others have talked about keeping you and your family safe, I've been able to deliver. The crime rate in Prince William County is at an all-time low. That's my record. That's who I am. And when you elect somebody to be your leader, when you elect somebody to a leadership position, whether it's governor or anything else, you don't necessarily know what challenges are going to be facing that person when they're in office. So you have to elect them, and you need to choose them based upon their character. And right now in this country, with the left on a rampage, pressuring us, trying to get us to back down, putting pressure on Republican leaders across the country, protesting town hall meetings by Republican congressmen. They hate President Trump. That's the thing about the left. They like to say that we're the haters. They're the haters. The one thing that I want you to know about me, because we don't know what challenges are going to be facing this Commonwealth, you need to know that I am a fighter, that I never, ever, ever back down, and that I'm a winner. You will always be proud of the leadership that you're going to get out of the governor's mansion. We're going to take the Commonwealth back. We're going to reduce your taxes. We're going to reduce government regulations. We're going to make you and your family safer. And we are going to win the governor's mansion this November.
have 2 minutes, and we're going to begin this time with Mr. Stewart.
What I just said. I'm just kidding. I really don't have a lot more to add. Smart aleck down there. You know, I think I want to come back to the statue issue, and that is because it's about our culture. And there's a lot of important things. Our economy is right there at the top of the issues that you're all facing with. But you know what? On these cultural issues, we've been backing down for too long. You know, I was in Europe. I was in Eastern Europe in 1990. It was right after the communist government fell in Poland. And when you had a political discussion with anybody over there, do you know what they did? They looked around their shoulders. They wanted to see if there was anybody there because they were worried. They were worried that somebody was going to rat them out. We're headed in that direction, folks. And if you think that this is just an issue, as apparently Mr. Gillespie thinks, and he would allow the city of Charlottesville to take down that statue of Robert E. Lee. If you think that that's right, if you think that we should let that happen because it has no consequence, you're wrong. The left is fighting. They are fighting for the heart and soul of this Commonwealth. They are fighting to take away our heritage, our history, and when you allow anyone to do that, you've given it all up. The city of Charlottesville has already made it clear that they're not stopping with Robert E. Lee, because when they're done with removing the statue of Robert E. Lee, they're taking down the statues of Thomas Jefferson. They're coming right after our state. And if you want a strong governor who's going to stand up for you and never back down, then please vote for me on June 13th. Thanks a lot.
Let me just say this. We talked a little bit about Donald Trump. I was a Trump campaign chairman. They called me way prior to the convention and said, would you be? I wasn't fired by Trump. And, you know, Ed Gillespie wouldn't be caught in the same zip code with Donald Trump. What was at stake? 3 Supreme Court justices. The outcome of 3 Supreme Court justices was at stake. It would have changed the lives of our children and our grandchildren forever, ever in the direction of this country. I don't think we'd ever recover from that. That's what's at stake. Why one of our opponents running for governor wouldn't go to the mat for Donald Trump with what's at stake, I think speaks miles about it. Which way is the wind blow? I'm afraid I'll upset my friends in Northern Virginia. You know, that's wrong. A lot of talk about statues. You know I'm a conservative. But I also have a vision. Because I think conservatives ought to have a vision. You see, a ship that goes, and we learned this at the Naval Academy, a ship that goes to sea and doesn't know what port it's headed to, just aimlessly in the ocean. And I think it's imperative that we here in Virginia know where we're going. That we have that port. That we resolve ourselves to say that all areas of the Commonwealth, the economy is going to be good, great, and on fire. Let's set that goal. We set that goal, and I tell you what, the revenues will roll in. The tax revenues will roll in. Let's stop treating symptoms of a bad economy and start treating the disease, the underlying disease. In 2 minutes, I can't tell you all the plans that we have. But the way to raise money, revenues, is to raise the level of economy and economic activity in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm that candidate that can bring that to you. See, I have this vision of a transportation, Southside Virginia, back being the manufacturing corridor that it used to be. It's going to take a couple of investments, but we'll get that return on investment. Same thing for Southwest Virginia. We have an economic artery called Interstate 81 that's filled with cholesterol. That if we don't clean it out, the economy is going to choke there. The economy in Northern Virginia is choked today because of transportation as it is in my neck of the woods. We can make these investments. If we don't, we can look forward to treating more symptoms around Virginia. The time to act is now. The time to act is this administration. I hope you vote for Frank Wagner on June 13th and share that vision with me of all areas of the Commonwealth. Thank you all very, very much.
And how about another huge round of applause for both of our candidates?
Thank you, Heather. Wonderful job you did.
Thank you.
One more hit for our candidates. Thank you, Mr. Timekeeper. Very diligent of you. I'd like to leave everybody with this one last message. These gentlemen made it pretty clear that the left is at war. If we don't consider ourselves at war, then we're missing something. And the way that we fight that is to get involved, right? You've got to show up. You've got to volunteer for one of the groups here, the Hanover Republican Committee, Hanover Republican Women's Club, Patrick Henry Tea Party, Mechanicsville Tea Party, or the College Republicans at Randolph-Macon. You've got to volunteer for one of these fine candidates. They need you. We all need you. Our sponsors today are the Family Foundation and the Heritage Action Political Action Committee. Consider joining them. Life Church, get involved. Find something that you can do to participate, because Donald Trump needs your help. Thank you, everyone. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. This concludes the forum.